Advice to startup companies. You have to start with great people. It's a silly picture, but it's really important. So you have a team. The team is what matters. As I go through this discussion, we'll talk about what I, in my experience, have found to be important with investors. But that's a side issue. The most important issue is starting a company and the difficult job it is to actually start a company and make a success out of it. You have to start with great people. There's just no question about it. And if there are people here that are starting with only one person, it's generally not a good idea. Very few people. So the great incubator in the United States, Y Combinator, Paul Graham is the founder of that. He's a good guy. And he said, by his statistics, 90% of companies that start with one founder fail. And of the remaining 10%, the ones that succeed, most of them are people that already started a company and had success. So you got to get other people that are dynamic, that are going to add value, that make something happen as part of your company. Investors look for the people first. Just remember that. It's not the ideas, it's the people. We'll talk more about it. So start with great people. You have to make, these are all obvious things. You can go and imagine that this has to be the case, but let's remind ourselves that what's important is that you're making something that customers want. A startup company, an early startup company, such as the things that you're struggling with, are really a sort of laboratory experiment on business model. You're figuring it out. You're trying stuff, you're building prototypes, you're doing things, but really, I'm sorry about my Skype is interrupting the pictures here. You're doing many things, but what you're discovering is what the business model is and who are the customers you're addressing and what it is you're going to be doing. You start off with an idea, and at the end of the process, when you're building a successful company, the idea is typically very different from the thing you start off with. So you have to be, much abused word is agile. You have to be agile in building your model and consider the early work in building a startup company to be an experiment, a laboratory experiment in the business model. Business model meaning where the money's going to come from, what the product is, who the customers are, how you get the customers, all these fundamental things, the pieces of which can vary, but make something that customers want, which implies that you know who the customers are to begin with. It's very important, obviously. Investors look for teams that know who their customers are. Another obvious thing, your mom, my dad, everybody told me, spend as little money as possible. If you're talking to investors and you have some value in your company, you've made some success, you've gone along, there's valuation in what you're doing that's reasonable, like, the waiters that walk around with the things that you eat, the hors d'oeuvres, as they call them. Take as many as you possibly can fit in your plate, right? Going to an investor, take as much money as you possibly can, but don't spend it. Be stingy about spending it. Don't spend it. Spend it only on things that are essential. Be very careful about how you expend your money. Show in your business plan how you are going to be stingy with spending your money. Most startups fail because they expand too quickly, typically in terms of hiring new people. That's the way it is, okay? So you have to face that fact and be very careful. In a internet-based, internet-driven web application, a commerce application, whatever you want to pick, it's really important that you have a CEO who knows something about the business. And there has to be a CEO. We'll talk about that in a little while. Who knows about the business. But typically in a technical group, it's somebody who has technical competence, who knows how to make stuff that meets the customer's needs, so makes them happy. And you start off with a very small group, and you go through pain with a very small group for a longer period of time so you don't have to spend as much money. Get as much money as it's possible to get, spend it as little as possible, as slowly as possible.